Hey guys, it's Krystal Lee Lucier here, also known as your Home Sweet Home 519 Realtor, Krystal Lee Moore. This is Realtor Life. And guys, I am so excited about our guests today. Today we have Danielle Hilliard and Samantha Thomas, Dani and Sam, and they're here to talk to us about, thank you guys so much for coming. But they're here to talk to us about their new, I'd say like endeavor, business, Unity Sport and also to tell us kind of the journey that led to it. So, welcome, ladies.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So happy. Okay, so let's start with each of your backgrounds. Dani, did you always know kind of this was the journey for you? Like how did you get started on your journey as an adult that led you here?
I think that, like a lot of coaches, I started off as an athlete and getting a love for the sport through being an athlete typically leads you to want to stay involved with the sport as long as you have a good experience. So I think that this project or like this company that we've come up with really mirrors that. It's very much about making sure that the athlete stays at the center of everything that we are doing to ensure that they have a positive sport experience from first introduction to hopefully they don't exit the sport, but until they exit the sport.
Yes.
We just want to bring every single role that exists within the sport world together and working towards a unified goal versus operating in these separate silos. So yeah, I think that's kind of where we connected and we had very similar views on where we think sport is versus where we think it should be and how we can shift the culture a little bit just to reflect a more unified approach to sport, especially in youth sport. I know that it gets quite competitive, once you get to an
Yeah.
elite level, but it doesn't have to be that way from the jump.
For sure. And so and I definitely want to hear from you, Sam, too. But before we go further, I know you explained to me when we first met, Dani, about exactly what Unity Sport is. But for our listeners, what is Unity Sport?
So our company, it exists to be able to unify every single role within the sporting world. So we have your parents, you have coaches, you have administrators, you have athletes, you have volunteers, anyone who is part of the sport world. We want to bring everyone together to be able to understand each role and how they positively contribute to the athlete. We're very athlete centered. So taking every single role and making sure that it is creating a very strong foundational base for that athlete to be lifted up and to have the most positive experience possible within that sport and also excel to their best capability. We know that not every athlete is going to be an Olympic athlete or is going to be, a world's athlete, but we want them to excel to the best of their capability and feel fulfilled in what they're able to
Yeah,
accomplish.
that is awesome. And what was that? What was your sport?
My sport, I started off, oh my gosh, I was all over the place, but I started off with gymnastics. I also did downhill ski racing and
Nice.
archery. And I was also in the National Ballet for a couple of years. So I was really, you know,
You get it.
testing the waters in a bunch of different sports. But
Amazing.
I moved to cheerleading, and that was kind of my most recent love and where I put a lot of my focus into.
Amazing. Amazing. Now, Sam, what about you? What was it kind of that led you to this journey? And what was, if you were involved as an athlete, what did you do?
So, the beauty of Dani and I working together is that we both have the same passion. We both have the same values when it comes to sport. But the way that I got into it was the complete opposite of her. So,
Okay.
I was
Okay.
actually not a hardcore athlete at all. In fact, I would label myself an artsy fartsy person.
Okay.
I grew up in a household where both of my parents were entrepreneurs, and I swore up, down, left, right that I would never be one. Here I am on my second business with Dani. third business actually. I've lost track. So I fell in love with competitive cheerleading in high school.
Nice.
I ended up doing it all through university and then All Star Cheer, which is kind of the strictly competitive form of cheerleading. And at 21, I kind of snowballed into accidentally opening my own gym. So I owned
Okay.
the cheerleading gym for 13 years. So
Wow.
I've seen the sport from wearing many different hats.
Yes. Amazing. I love that. And I was a cheerleader in high school, but I didn't have any of the tumbling. So I didn't have any of the gymnastics side of it. So it really wasn't something I could do once we got to higher levels, unless I was able to do those like amazing things with my body. Which spoiler, I was not. It was more my like enthusiasm for my peers because they were if someone's able to do like back handsprings and tucks and cartwheels, I can do a somersault, like a really good one, but that's all I got.
High five,
Thank you.
sister.
Thank you.
I'm in the same boat as you. I did not come from gymnastics. I got like a handspring and a round up handspring and learned to flip if people threw me, but I was not flipping of my own accord. So I'm right
Okay,
there with you. I
okay.
get
Good
it.
stuff. Thank you. Um, so you both had this love for cheerleading, and what I think is really interesting, so for people listening, if you're wondering, why do we have two people that are in the athletic space? Like how does this all match together? What I've learned, so my husband, I was mentioning, is a boxing coach. And as he's going through this journey, I'm noticing parallels between the mental requirements for an athlete or a coach to excel and the entrepreneur's journey, which is maybe that's why you are falling, Sam, into this entrepreneur path that we've all signed up for, sometimes begrudgingly. Uh, yeah, you are your own boss, but sometimes your boss is not great. That's the fun of an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
Um, so when you're looking at the athlete and the mental side of it, so you guys must really get to see behind the curtain on how important someone's mental state is to their performance. How do you
Very
deal with
much
that?
so.
Like even at a young age, when kids are coming in and you know that if they're not here, they're not going to do their best and then they won't be happy. How do you get them out of that space? Like on the clock, because usually these competitions have to start at a certain time.
Yeah, I think a lot of it begins with the culture within the facility. So,
Okay.
the ability of the coaches to be able to regulate their own emotions
Yes.
is the first step. And then that will trickle down to the athletes. So if the coach can create a safe space where their emotions are regulated and they're in tune with, if their athlete is having a rough day or if they're showing signs of just not being on, you can
Yeah.
pull them aside and ask them, what's going on, better understand where they're falling mentally that day and plan accordingly. Because I think a lot of the issues that we fall into as coaches is, you know, give 100% every single day. You got to show up, you got to put in all of your effort. But what we don't realize is that 100% for everyone looks different every single day and looks
Yes.
different athlete to athlete. So taking that into account and realizing at the end of the day that it's just sport. It
Yes.
does not have to be that serious. And, I think we're missing the fun in sport a lot of the
Yes.
time. I think it shifts so much to a business mindset versus a mindset of making sure that the athlete at the end of the day is the one enjoying themselves and that they're having the best time possible and that they are excelling in what it is that they want to excel in.
I love that. And I think it's a really cool dynamic that you guys have because you have like Dani, you who actually you were that athlete. And so you're kind of inside of it. But then Sam, you didn't grow up in that same kind of situation. You had a little bit of a different view. So now you guys have you have both. You're seeing these athletes and Dani, like kind of what they're going through. But Sam, you can kind of step outside of that and go, okay, that's what you're going through, but let's look at the big picture. And I think
Yeah.
that's a cool, cool pairing that you guys have created.
I think that looking at sport through that entrepreneurial lens, as an entrepreneur that we deal with a lot of pressure, right?
Yeah,
And one of the things that Unity is really focused on is shifting from pressure to purpose. I think that when you have
I
purpose
like
and you
that.
know what the end goal is and you know what your North Star is, you are able to manage pressure in a much different way. And I
Yeah.
know through as a coach, that's kind of where you can help your athletes prepare to handle that pressure is when they know what we're doing and what we're building together, the pressure just releases a little bit, right? Because you get to share that burden with your family, with your teammates, and with your support system.
Yes.
Yeah, you get out of that narrow focus on where you think the end goal needs to be and how you're going to get there,
Yeah.
and instead shift to a this is where I'd like to see us. Let's see where it goes. Because when you focus on the end goal as being your purpose versus
Yeah.
a set goal that if you don't make it, you're going to be disappointed, everything else just kind of falls into place. And
Yes.
the journey becomes much more enjoyable and much
Fun.
more fun.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it becomes this, it's not all building up to this one moment. It's like these little tiny moments and these little tiny like hurrah moments
Yeah.
where you can be like, wow, like I did that. And
Yes.
celebrate that along the way versus having your eyes so far into the future that you forget to enjoy the present moment.
I think that's so important because I find like the one thing that I've noticed, you either have people that were former athletes, um, and then they lose, like for whatever reason, if whether it's like they age out of it or they stop doing it, if they don't have something else, it becomes very empty, right? So like, and that's probably one of the reasons where if you have a passion, you're going to go and you're going to help others versus just kind of all of a sudden, it's kind of like with entrepreneurs when you have a goal and you reach the goal, there's this big paradox where it's like you go for it, you get it, and then it's
What's
like,
next?
oh, well, the what's next? But then is like it doesn't feel as good as you thought it would feel because it was the pursuit that was exciting. The achieving it just means it's done,
But I
right? So
think yeah, I think a lot of that falls into not seeing the value in the journey and kind of missing those points where you can look back and see how far you've come because
yeah,
every day if you're making little tiny increments forward, you don't necessarily see how much you've progressed, but if you can be in the moment and then all of a sudden look back on how far
yes,
you've come, it really does show this stark contrast of like where you were versus where you are now, and how proud you can be at that moment just to reflect on it.
absolutely. Now I'm always curious. So how do you guys deal now when in your space with Unity Sport, is it like do you have specific teams that are part of that or is it kind of just a hub for like any and all are welcome? Like how does that work?
we kind of have we have a vision for the future as well as what we're working on right now. Right now, as Dani talked about, we kind of have this system, right? It's like a triangle with the athlete at the top,
Yeah.
and you have your parents and your coaches at the bottom. They're the foundation that allows the
Yeah.
athlete to rise. Right now, in our industry specifically, and I think in a lot of sports, we can see this sever in the connection between parents and coaches. And right now, our focus is on repairing that cut
Yeah.
so that we can get that foundation to be nice and strong. And then we have a goal to focus on athletes as well.
Nice.
But
Okay.
basically, we're trying to facilitate this vision between parents and coaches. They're our main focus at the moment,
Yes.
so that they can be operating in alignment with themselves and with each other. So that's our biggest focus with Unity right now. And I think until we kind of repair that, that's what that's where we need to be at this moment. But in the
Yeah.
future, we also really want to have a structure to support athletes as well.
I love that. Now, how are you guys doing that? Because I think we actually had a really great chat on with a gentleman named James Coolidge, and James started a business consulting company because he realized that in order he wanted to help youth that was troubled. And so part of that help, and for years he was a pastor helping youth on the street. And he kept noticing there was a pattern that their homes were very, very turbulent. And so what he thought is like, okay, so their homes are turbulent. How can I fix that? So he decided to go the other way and help businesses, like help actual business owners and people that were creating environments at workplaces so that the employees could be treated well, so they could go home and create good spaces for their kids. He thought like maybe I can actually like nip this thing in the bud. And it sounds very similar to kind of what you guys are doing. You're like, if we really want to help these people at the top,
Mhm.
it's got to start down here.
Yeah,
I love that.
it's starting out with again that end goal vision and working your way backwards and seeing where the foundation of all of the issues lie. And
Yeah.
our our vision has shifted quite a few times.
Mhm.
Like we
Okay.
did originally want to work one-on-one with the athletes,
Yeah.
and then we were like, how can we make a bigger difference rather than coming in for a weekend, working with the athletes,
Yeah.
having the coaches off to the side doing their own thing
Yeah.
versus working with the coaches and helping them to find their own purpose and their own values and their
Yes.
own goals that
Yeah.
will work in alignment with the athlete so that you can really help them to mature into their highest version of themselves. And then the parents kind of came in on the periphery because we were like, there is this kind of unspoken thing to the
Yeah.
side where like no one really talks about the the tension that exists between the parents and the coaches
Yeah.
and these, I guess we would call them soft skills, but really they're very complex skills of communication and how to not only communicate but also receive what someone else is saying to you and
Yes.
really sit in a place of neutrality where you can truly put yourself in their shoes and see what it is that they're trying to accomplish versus seeing it as an attack on you. Because a
For
lot of the
sure.
times when we're in this like fight or flight mode, it's so easy to be combative and go head to head and be like, you're doing this, you're doing that.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time we forget that that athlete is at the top where we're both trying to serve that athlete. But the further away from, each other that we move, it's no longer that strong triangle. It becomes a flat line where the athlete's in the middle of conflict versus
Like a tug of war almost. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I think that that's kind of where we were like, we really need to bring in this support for the parents
Yeah.
specifically to kind of define the role of how they can best assist their athlete as well as show up for the coach and support the coach so that everyone is working together towards a common goal versus working in their separate silos towards you know
Yeah. I'm always curious about that because I would think, um, even though everyone probably tries to get over it, a coach is probably looking at the team and how can the team do the best because I'm sure there's incentives for that, but there's a heart there too, right? They want the team to excel. And then the parent has one kid, or maybe two, but probably one. Um, and they want that kid to excel. They want the team to win too, but they really want that, like that's the focus. So that must be tough. I can see that there'd be a divide between the team's going to do well if this person is in front, but the
Yeah.
parent of the other person is like, no, 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 no. My kid should be in front.
So that's exactly the gap that we're trying to bridge. And the way we're
Yes.
doing that is by offering two communities, two separate communities, one for coaches and one for parents, where they're going to receive a newsletter from us and they can
Okay.
submit Q&A. And we're also going to have a third newsletter where everything that we learn from each side will come together and allow each side to see different perspectives. So
Right.
it's like, this
Yes.
month, here's what we heard from coaches. This month, here's what we heard from parents. Let us present
Yeah.
it to both of you and unify you so that you can see
Yes.
from both sides.
Mm-hmm.
So, really, we're looking at creating community, educational resources, and just kind of creating structure for both parents and coaches to filter their perceptions through a lens that allows them to actually see the team as a whole and the
Yeah.
experience on the whole on both sides.
And then
Yeah,
I'm
we're
curious as well.
really
Go ahead.
trying
Sorry.
to unify both sides
Yeah.
and be able to bring them together to work as one versus working so separately.
Yeah.
You kind of hit the nail on the head where you're saying, that the parent is going to be very hyper focused on their athlete and not so much the team. And I think that if we are able to shift that mindset to be team focused and unify that entire team and look at it as one strong, cohesive unit versus little separate pawns on a playboard, you
Yeah.
can you can see how the team will come together and just work so much more efficiently versus really operating from a place of ego where you want
Yes.
one athlete to be the star and you build everything around that one athlete and then you have a bunch of other athletes kind of feeling cast aside.
Yes.
You want to give every single athlete, no matter what the sport, you want to give them their moment to shine and their
Yes.
moment to display what it is that they've learned. And that is fully like we are capable of doing that. It doesn't have to be a one person show, and it doesn't have to revolve around the most talented. It can be really a display of how the entire unit functions as one. And I
Yeah.
think those are the most healthy dynamics that you can have when
For
no
sure.
one puts themselves above the team.
Um, have you guys seen Ted Lasso?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that when you say that, it reminds me of when it first starts, Jamie Tart. And for anyone listening, if you haven't seen Ted Lasso, I think I mentioned this almost every episode. Please go
So
watch it.
good.
But Jamie Tart is like the guy. And he knows he's the guy, and everyone else knows he's the guy. And it's really not, it makes for a very toxic dynamic. And then all of a sudden, things change. And as they change, the thought from him is like, well, now everyone's just, well, now we're going to lose.
Yeah.
But look what happens, right? Like other people rise up because more is expected of them.
Mm-hmm. And because
Yeah.
when you heal that like individual perspective within a team, it actually benefits absolutely every single person. And that's the beauty of it. You actually
Yeah.
don't need to be special to create something special.
Yes, I love that. That's actually a really good, yes, because I think everyone's special in their own way. But I mean, we're all different and we're all better at different things than other people.
Yeah.
Um, it's really cool that you're doing that. Now, are you focused for Unity Sport at first? Is it going to be focused on the sport of cheerleading, or are you using other sports as well?
I think that cheerleading is what we know, and
Yeah,
that's why we are so focused on cheerleading. It's
for
where,
sure.
yeah, a lot of our contacts are in terms of like the coaches and
Yeah,
the athletes, and even some parents as well, who
Mhm.
have been the ones who really like helped to shine a light on where we could really step in and help bridge that gap. So like parents
yeah,
who are frustrated or like don't quite understand how they can assist. And we're like, wow, like
I,
that's something we can help with
I
for
think though
sure.
that it's funny because the more we go along and the more people we meet and talk to about this, the more we're
yeah,
realizing that this really is in every sport and in some
Yes.
businesses, in any kind of structure that requires
yeah,
teamwork,
yeah.
there's kind of a sever that needs to be healed, I think. So although we love cheerleading and we know all about it, I really see this expanding to more sports in the future as we move
Yeah.
along.
And I mean, I think really, I mean, there's things that need to be healed that may not ever be healed, like this system, like systemic issue where I mean, unless you're just doing it for fun, which I think people start doing a sport for fun, there tends to be this filtering out when you get to the higher levels where, let's say, and I'm thinking football, but let's say like there is a whole team and you all want to play together, but then there's a recruiting process for
Mhm.
professional athletes
Mhm.
and they're not being recruited as a team.
Right.
Right. And so it's like when you see like there's so many movies about that where the scouts come out and they're watching the one person. But I think that's like that one person can't play alone. And
Mm-mm.
so it's like there almost has to be like some other, I mean, we're not going to change the sporting world, but
Mhm.
not overnight anyway. But
Yeah.
there needs to be something where it if you don't get that level, it's not over. Right. Like it's
Right.
like you still have this
Exactly.
great experience.
Yeah, we are all meant to have a different path, right? And some people are meant to have that Olympic path or elite high level path, and we
Yes.
should celebrate those people and celebrate the people who don't have that path too and help them find their
Yes.
strengths. The whole point of sport is to find people's strengths, allow them to amplify them and allow them to, find themselves through sport and through
Yes.
team and take those gifts to whatever area their life is meant to flow to. And it's not always high level in that sport, but there's
For
still so
sure.
many lessons to learn from sport regardless.
But also taking into account the journey to that point, a lot of the
Yes.
time, even in individual sports, we've been talking a lot about team sports, but in individual sports, it's still not separate. Like you look at the pathway of this elite level athlete and all of the people that they encountered along the way who helped to
Yes.
inspire them and
Mhm.
push them to be better.
Yes.
And by working as one unit and working together and not against each other, you can see how that benefits one another. Like your competition is also your biggest inspiration. And if you
Yes.
can start to look at it that way,
Yeah.
you can take away the tension that exists between those two teams or those two individuals and look at it more from a like like mutually beneficial relationships where
Absolutely.
like I did this skill. Like you congratulate them, like, wow, like, thank you for showing me that that is a possibility. Like
Yes.
I thought before that I could never do that, but now that I've seen it done,
Yep.
I'm going to push myself. And you see it in so many different sports too, where, everyone thinks that, say in running, like getting to a certain
I was
time
gonna
is
say, I think
impossible. But
Roger
one person does
Banning.
it and
Yeah.
it keeps getting broken, the record,
Yes.
because you
There
see it's
was
possible. And all of a sudden your mind shifts to, wow, that's
absolutely.
possible. I can do it too.
I think it was I want to say Roger Banning or someone, but there was a 4 minute mile. And they were like, it cannot happen. If you and the like they really were like, if you do it, you will die. Like the human body can't do it. And then he did it. And all of a sudden, everyone else started doing it. And it was like, okay, so it wasn't a human barrier, it was a mental barrier.
Mhm.
100%.
Mhm.
And I think that that is something that exists more often than we even realize.
Yeah.
We put these own caps on our ability because mentally we think, this is where I'm going to get to,
Yeah.
or we think this is where I want to go, but you don't allow your path to diverge somewhere else that you're meant to go
Yeah.
because you can't separate yourself from that attachment to the end goal that you thought you wanted for yourself.
Yes. Like
So
you're
just,
not letting life happen. You're not paying attention.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
And I think that that's where we focus on is stepping into alignment where you can feel what feels right in your body and what
Yeah.
feels like what gives you the tingles, what gives you that
Yes.
passion of like, I want to keep going. And sometimes it's not where you saw yourself, but it's better.
Yes. And I think that's kind of where having amazing people like yourselves in the like in the um I don't even know this in the situation for for kids or for athletes or for parents where they might be so in it that they can't see that,
Mhm.
but that's where you have that experience and you can say, okay, so we're seeing this. Let's talk about it. How does it feel?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
just starting conversations can often make a really big impact, I think.
Yeah. That's really cool. And so right now, so Unity Sport, the goal is you're trying to kind of repair the parents and coaches. And are you kind of talking with parents and coaches together or separately? I know you're doing the newsletter, like that the plan is the newsletters, but how are you approaching that? Because I think you guys are really aware of it. Do all of the do the coaches and parents also are you getting pushback on kind of that this is a problem?
No, because I think that we've reached a point in this industry where everyone can see that
They
something's
get
going
it.
on,
Yeah.
right? I think that once we facilitate enough conversations in that area, the next step for us is kind of Dani's a real expert in long-term athlete development. She has a
Yes.
lot of that framework created through Cheer Canada. And I have always seen it from a coaching perspective, seeing how important it is to build athletes from the ground up and not push them ahead too quickly. And keeping athletes in sport is a huge goal for us, right? So the next piece of
Yeah.
the puzzle is to help gym owners create a framework that actually facilitates long-term athlete development versus right now in our industry, it's very much like go, 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 get to worlds as fast as you can.
Yeah.
And it's not serving our athletes. So for Unity, that's the next step is consulting actual gym owners and helping them
Mhm.
build a structure that allows them to be both profitable
Yes.
and a really healthy place for kids to grow up and spend a lot of their time.
Yes, for
And I
sure.
think that definitely comes from the coaches and from the parents and having those conversations. We're not looking to come in and tell you, like, this is what it is, this is what we know, you have to listen to us. I think it's coming from a problem solving point of view where you say, like, where are the pain points and
Yes.
how can we work together to repair those pain points. um,
Yeah.
because a lot of the time I think people come in and go, I know what the problem is and this is what we're going to do to fix it. But again, it's that closed mindset of you're not actually listening to the people that you're trying to serve. And that's where the collective comes in, the community that we're trying to
Yeah.
build, where we actually want them involved in the conversation. Like, we
Yes.
want to know where you are experiencing those pain points because we know from our perspective what we've experienced in the different hats that we've worn. But I've never been
Yeah.
a parent of an athlete, so I don't know from experience what it is that they face other than from having these conversations with them. So really, like, diving in deep and figuring out where are you struggling and where can we be of best assistance for you.
For sure. Now, I have a question, and this is more of a curiosity, but I think it's really important for kind of all youth right now. But how do you guys deal with like body image for the athletes? I know whether it's dancing, whether it's cheerleading, swimming. I remember growing up, and a lot of my friends would have like either they'd be the tiny one in the group, or like what do you do for that? Because I know like with Instagram, social media, it can be overwhelming for and this is for like non-athletic kids. I remember our daughter, us being really worried about her going through all of these social media things because sometimes it's not realistic. But then with athletes, you kind of your body is also your tool. So
Right.
how do you guys navigate that?
I think that it's funny because I know Danny's going to have a lot of insight on this. So I'll definitely hand it over to her. But I just wanted to say that I
Yeah.
know that in cheer, there is definitely a stigma of like, oh, you have to be tiny, blah, 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 blah. But cheer is actually a beautiful vehicle for people to accept themselves in all different body sizes. Because when
Okay.
everybody's teeny tiny, that's not going to work very well. Like we
Right.
actually need people of all different sizes, ages, everything
Yes.
to make a beautiful routine. So
Yes.
although it can be toxic, it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be. And this is all
Nice.
about shifting
Okay.
the mindset and learning to appreciate people for each one of their roles that they're naturally suited for.
Amazing. I like that. That's really
Mhm.
good.
And I think also promoting and rewarding flexibility in that I'm not stuck in this is my role and I will only do this role. I know that for me, for a very long time, I was like, I am a flyer. I am the one tossed in the air. I am the one who goes up and is seen. And
Yes.
then when I actually took a step back and I started going and doing clinics and choreography, I had to learn how to base so
Yes.
that we could do demonstrations. And I was like, wow, like this is fun. Like
Yeah.
it's cool to get to experience all of the different roles within the
Yes.
team. And I think that it's super important that it's introduced at a younger age where you don't necessarily do that throughout the year, but you develop this appreciation for
Yeah.
how difficult the other roles are and how they all have to work together to make this beautiful end goal, like picture perfect routine.
Yes.
It, again, it's you can't do it on your own. A flyer isn't lifting themselves in the air, and like bases, like you need that flyer in the air to make that beautiful
Yes.
picture.
Absolutely.
So really appreciating every single role and the effort and the dedication that goes into those roles to be able to work together to put out a performance that every single person is proud of.
For sure. And the trust. Like, so I think I mentioned like I was a cheerleader for a brief time in high school and I was a base. And I remember being like someone said it would be we should all like trade one day. And I was just like, I'm not doing that. Like there's number one, I didn't trust that that I wouldn't somehow like fall.
Right.
And I was like, if I'm shaking that much, I'm not going to be okay. But it's true, like knowing, um, because the girls that were able to go up and feel confident and like they were okay, they're safe and everything. But it looks a lot easier when you're watching it in a competition or if you're watching it on TV than it actually is.
Mhm.
Right.
And good for you for being like, so were you the person that like would like do all the like, did you do flips and stuff in the air?
Yeah,
That's
yeah, I
exciting.
it was fun, but it was also I think that I limited myself a lot by not having a more open
Yeah.
viewpoint of how I could best assist my team versus how I could
Okay.
best display my talents. Like
Fair.
a
Okay.
lot of what I did as an athlete came from like a desire to be seen and this
Yep.
like egoic mindset of
Yeah.
I'm special and I want to be the center of attention
Yep.
versus how do I best serve my team? And I think the
Yeah.
older that I got, the more my mind naturally shifted towards that perspective. And then all of a sudden I started enjoying the sport way more. And
Yeah.
I started feeling a part of something bigger than myself. And it
Yes.
was much more rewarding than being so focused on being that one star where I was separate from everyone else. It was a very lonely spot to be in.
Yeah.
And it was also very disappointing because, again,
Yeah.
I didn't get that feeling of, everything is complete and I am happy because that's not how it works.
Well, that never, yeah, that never comes. But I also think, like, to your point, I don't think that you just came up with that theory, right? Like that's where I was saying like the systemic piece of it where we're all trying to like stand out because if you stand out, maybe someone will notice that you're amazing and then they'll want to recruit you and that
Mhm.
means you've made it versus like what you said, like you're having fun and you're part of a team and the skills you're learning as part of that team are going to carry you through your whole life.
Mhm. And
That's
it
yeah.
brings that sense of connection. And I think
Yes.
that's especially this day and age what a lot of us feel are is missing is that connection piece, human to human. You
Yes.
know, a lot of the time we shift away from connection because we have such a skewed view of connection because we have the internet at our fingertips
Yep.
because we have social media and we have this constant bombardment of all of the people who are in this world and we feel like, oh, like I can connect with you at any time, but I think it takes away the sacredness of what connection really means, and that like not just one-on-one but team connection as well, where you're all working together towards something bigger than just the self.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of the time that has shifted, in everyone's kind of working towards their end goal,
Yes.
and that connection is lost because
So
we view ourselves as so separate versus
sure.
part of the collective.
Yeah. So I think that that'll definitely lead me to another question, which is in your experience, how do you repair that? So if you have athletes, and I mean, and I think this is the same if you have a team of entrepreneurs, but if you see this divide, how are you helping them fix it? I mean, you're trying to fix it, but they ultimately have to do the work. What are some of the things that you guys have done to make sure that if there is a team that you're coaching, if there are athletes that you're coaching, that you're helping bridge that gap between the me versus the we?
I think as simple as like we were talking about having opportunities for each athlete to try different positions, it's
Okay.
really about shifting into the other person's perspective, right?
Yeah.
Also, opportunities for them to feel the feeling of being part of something that is bigger than just them, right? So
Hey,
whether
okay.
that's maybe taking the team to volunteer at something,
Yes.
to just to
Mhm.
be of service to something greater than themselves, and
Yeah.
just really helping them understand how to zoom out from their own perspective,
Yeah.
and feeling what it feels like to be authentic instead of trying so hard, you
Yes.
know?
Okay. Authenticity. I love that.
I think that once everyone on the team, or even in individual sports, start taking accountability for their own self and their own emotions and their own actions,
Yes.
it has a ripple effect where everyone else feels comfortable to start taking accountability, because they don't look at it as blame, they look at it as building themselves up to something better.
Empowerment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that the blame game is a slippery slope. And, no one wants to admit, like, oh, I did something wrong there. Like, they want to blame it all on the other person so that they don't have to feel like the guilt of doing something wrong. But that's the only way we learn, is by
Yes.
making mistakes and
It is.
looking at it as an opportunity to grow and to better ourselves.
Absolutely.
I don't know when making mistakes turned into this like detrimental thing, but it
Yes.
really is the only way that we learn. So I think that looking at those mistakes as lessons and opportunities to get better and to grow, and not chastising one another for individual mistakes, and looking at it as a collective opportunity.
Absolutely. No, it's so true what you're saying. Um, I had a really great interview with another realtor, and she was talking about the effect of like one bad piece of fruit in a bowl of fruit. But I think the reverse is true. Like, right? Like that same metaphor doesn't actually happen with fruit, I guess, but the same
Mhm.
metaphor is that like if you have one good, like good will spread too.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
if you have someone on the team doing something positive, people are going to learn from that too.
Yep.
I
And
love
rewarding that versus giving, it's what you focus your attention on, right?
Yes,
So
exactly.
you focus your
Exactly.
attention on the bad or the good.
Um, oh, I like the tail. Very nice. Um, so okay, so in the interest of time, we're going to go with our kind of our last question that we usually do, which is if you were going to give an entrepreneur or an athlete three main things to focus on for success, what would those be?
Adaptability,
Yep, love it.
focus,
Hmm.
and self-care.
Yes,
Those would be mine for sure.
I love that. What about you, Dani?
Three things. I would say just being a forever student, like knowing that the more you know, the more you understand that you don't know enough.
Yeah.
So just having that, again, the growth mindset of I can always learn more. And even if I become the coach, I can still learn from the people I'm teaching, even. It
Mhm.
is a reciprocal relationship, and it's the same in
Always.
business too. If we're so focused on I think that I know best, we miss so many opportunities to truly connect with other people and to grow as a person.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the time the self-development kind of falls to the side where we're so focused on building a business or building a team,
Yeah.
and the only way that we're going to show up in the best version of ourselves is if we take time to work on ourselves outside of it all. So I
Yes.
think, yeah, self-care is a
Mhm.
huge one, that especially in coaching, it gets overlooked. We burn out and we want to just check out at the end of the day versus taking the time to check in words and see,
Yeah.
what's going on, what am I feeling, where can I make improvements.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
Love that.
think that those for me are
Yeah.
huge. The self-care is a big one.
Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. This was fantastic, guys. So if anyone wants to reach out to you, what is the best way to get in touch with you for Unity Sports?
I would say probably our social media.
Yeah, so our
Instagram?
Instagram is probably the best way. It's
And what,
Unity
yeah, I was gonna say, what is it, the exact one? It's Unity.
Sport
Yep.
dot co.
Oh, perfect. So unitysport.co on Instagram. Dani and Sam would be happy to talk with you more, and share more about their amazing endeavor. I think this is fantastic. And I've really enjoyed talking with you guys today.
Ditto. Thank you
Yes,
so
thank
much for
you.
having us. It was a really fun conversation.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you. So we will cut it there, guys, and I will just say thank you so much for joining us. This is Krystal Lee Lucier, also known as your Home Sweet Home 519 Realtor, Krystal Lee Moore, and this has been Realtor Live with Dani and Sam with Unity Sport. Thanks, guys. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.